Hi, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. It's Monday, April 25th, and we got a couple Major League Baseball free picks for Tuesday, the 26th, but a lot to cover before then. So stick with us, folks. You know, it's just not all about free picks. We're trying to educate you in the world of sports betting. We hope after watching our videos on this YouTube channel, you'll be a smarter sports bettor today than yesterday. And what better way to make you smarter? Not only talk to me, but that gentleman on the other side of me, one of the best handicappers in the country. He's with me every Monday. My buddy, my friend, and one hell of a handicapper, Mr. Doug Upstone. Doug, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing extremely well, Ross, and yourself. I mean, speaking of, I know that you have been in the NBA. You have been on fire of late, so we'll be able to tell everybody about that. So it's not just all about me; it's also about RB and RB wins with Ross Benjamin too.
Well, thank you so much, Doug. The USFL got underway, Doug, and I'm not participating or partaking in the adventure, but you are. And you're off to a good start. So fill the folks in a little bit.
Yeah, well,
Not
it's
only,
just
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no. I was going to say it's just I guess the only thing I could come up with that if you're going to ask me why, just think of that. I forget what the science fiction movie was with the guy with the giant head with a like Brainiac or something like that, So that's about it. I mean, it's just this isn't real rocket science. It's just doing research. That's all it is. And the research so far that I've been able to find has worked out. So got off to a good 2-0 start. One favorite week one with Tampa Bay, and then Tampa Bay got waxed because I was on New Orleans yesterday. So there's something, we got a couple weeks in, and now there's let's just say something to use.
Yeah.
So probably because of that I'll start losing. So
don't say that. You're going to continue to win, and then 6 weeks from now, you're going to tell us your theories on why you're winning in USFL, and I'm going to be all ears as well.
Okay.
As the viewers itself. So, I mean, but by the, again, smartly, in my opinion, you've dabbled in lightly.
Yes.
It sounds to me like you did one pick each week. And now, as Doug was saying, sometimes we need a body of work to handicap, and when a league is brand new, like the USFL, you really, really have to dig deep, I should say, to research and come up with a means. And sounds like that's what you did, Doug.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, it's just looking and reading and finding. There's some things because from the XFL from a couple of years ago that you could kind of use, but some of those things haven't been that particularly strong this year. If there's anything that's true about what's happened so far, it's been the solid coaching. I can't call it great, but solid coaching and matching the skills of your talent to what you do, and then finding something else out. In the case of New Orleans yesterday, for example, their defense has really been strong, and it was strong again yesterday. So that's kind of their calling card, along with a running game. And their coaches, you might remember most recently, Larry Fedora, who was at North Carolina and got canned, known as a good offensive mind and stuff like that. But he evidently has hired a good defensive coordinator, got some players, and they're off and running. So it's just stuff like that, that you can go by. And it's like yesterday, Ross, fourth time in the last 5 weeks, a winning golf week. Last week was a little bit different because it was a team play. That's how it was at the New Orleans Open. And I had Burns and Billy Horschel to finish in the top 5 and the top 10, and they finished second. So that was good too.
Yeah, there you go. And for those of you who like the PGA and might want to put in a wager, not only Doug really doesn't, you don't do the match play stuff and all that. Doug's more of a guy that gives you the entire tournament picks early on. Correct, Doug?
That's correct. It's all before the tournament starts. And you have a choice at Docs. You can either do head to head daily, or you can do whatever you want for the tournament. And mine is always all tournament.
Yeah, very good. So you could find Doug's PGA picks and his USFL picks, which he's off to a
Woo!
2-0 start, my man. You can find those at docsports.com. Great site, folks. Been around for 50 years. And like I said on numerous occasions, and will continue to say, you don't last that long unless you're having success. And you don't have success in this business unless you got a bunch of guys that are winning. I had Scott Spreitzer on last week. We have Doug regularly on twice a week, and just two of the great handicappers over there at docsports.com. Doug, you got some topics you want to discuss in Major League Baseball, and I'm all ears, and maybe I could add in to what you have, whatever your thoughts may be at
Sure.
this.
Yeah, just it's more just a random thoughts and stuff like that. One of the things, this isn't going to hold up for forever, even though it could to start this week. The Los Angeles Dodgers are 11-4, and it's of note that of their 11 wins, each one has also covered the run line.
Yeah.
So the offense has been really good, and the pitching has been outstanding. Now they're starting to lose some bodies in the bullpen and stuff, so that's a little bit more of a concern. But but against Arizona here the next 3 days, got to like their chances of doing well. Speaking of doing well, though, how about San Francisco, Ross? I mean,
Yeah.
I, like many, thought that, and it's way early, but they've done better than I would have thought. And most thing that's interesting is that, I just, after Bruce Bochy left, I thought, well, that's going to be it, for a while. And Gabe Kapler, nobody was too high on what he did in Philadelphia, but he seems to have kind of fit in and grown as a manager. And I thought yesterday was a particularly telling thing about him. Jack Peterson started yesterday for them, and as they swept Washington, and he had 2 home runs, I think 5 RBIs, and having a great game. And then Washington brought in a lefty pitcher, in the 8th inning, and they subbed him out to have a matchup advantage. Yeah. And I think that just kind of tells you something about this team and the identity they're looking to create and what they're looking to do. And they're just mixing and matching. And I'm not saying they're at Tampa Bay's level yet in terms of, they having there was always known as the Rays way, but the Giants way is working right now.
Yeah. I mean, Gabe Kapler, it's a good point. I mean, he didn't have much success in Philadelphia, but we've seen this before where young managers first time around don't do well, and then they go to another club and they take either they have more talent and a combination also of, they take all their learning experiences and put them to test. And he seems to have done so. You know what I like about managers like Gabe Kapler? If you remember, Doug, and I'm sure you do because you're a baseball aficionado, he was such a highly touted player when he first came up and in the draft as well. I think he was a #1 overall pick, if I'm not mistaken, but don't quote me on that. And he really didn't live up to expectations as a player. He didn't have a bad career, but he wasn't in that status where people thought he would be prior to coming up to the majors. And you could learn a lot from that as well. So he's a guy who has faced a lot of adversity, not only as a manager in Philadelphia, but as well as a player coming up and taking a lot of heat for underproducing as a highly touted prospect. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I think I might be thinking a little deep, but you're trying to attribute, well, what is it that since he's gone there that nobody thinks the Giants are going to do anything? They won 107 games last year, Doug, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And here they are. Their win total comes out this year. I believe you said it was 88, Doug, if I'm not mistaken.
86, again. Actually.
86.
Yeah, 86.
And they're off to a great start again. So he's pressing the right buttons. Give the players credit too. I don't know this for a fact, but I would venture to guess that by what the record was last year and how well they're doing to start this year, there's a good culture in that clubhouse.
Yeah.
No
question.
Yeah, you can't underestimate that, correct, Doug?
Yeah, I think I mentioned this. You can't underestimate it, but the analytics people want to, from that standpoint, because they're unconcerned with that, because that is that is something that you can't define by analytics, from that standpoint. But the players understand it, the manager understands it, and getting everybody to buy into exactly the same thing, to where a popular word today is being connected.
Yeah.
Okay, in sports. And
Yes.
that seems to be what is going on here. I mean, I still think they have some holes offensively and stuff like that, but and maybe the win total will be correct,
Yeah.
or closer to it. But just in terms of how they've started, it's been an impressive start. And we'll see when they have to play the Dodgers 19 times this year what happens. But they always seem to give the Dodgers their best shot, though. So that's something.
Even in their bad days, even in their
Oh, right,
days where
absolutely.
they're really not a very good ball club, or they're a mediocre team, they always seem to play the Dodgers tough, which is one of the most bitter rivals, if
Yeah.
not the most bitter rival in all of baseball. Doug, I hate to switch gears, but I have to, because you were just bringing up we were talking about culture and being connected and all that. And I look at this NBA series between the Celtics and the Brooklyn Nets. To me, Brooklyn has the two best players in the series, okay, unequivocally, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. But a typical example about a team that might have the two best players, but another team that's connected and overall is a better team in the Celtics. And it's proven. I mean, this is a Celtics team 29-6 over their last 35 games. And the Brooklyn Nets, who were the favorite to come out of the East and one of the favorites to win it all, according to the sportsbook odds before the season began. Major disappointment. I thought, Kyrie comes back. Okay, now he could start playing at home, and that home record, which is horrible, by the way, like 21-22 straight up and 9-34 against the spread at home this year. But a lot of that, I thought, was the fact that Brooklyn was overvalued, that they were missing Durant a lot of the times, and 3/4 of that home schedule, if not more, was played without Kyrie Irving because of the ridiculous COVID rules in the state of New York. So I just was curious to hear your thoughts on that, or anything else we witnessed so far in the NBA playoffs that you think is pertinent.
Yeah, well, this is definitely something that has my interest, and I wrote about it somewhere today. And the NBA playoffs, Ross, and this, they're about two things. Okay, they're about matchups and they're about situations. Matchups tend to be over the course of a series. Situations have come up on a game by game situation. So I was first to admit, I mean, this Brooklyn should have won at least one of the first two games at Boston, if not both. They back and forth in the first game. Just Boston made a perfect play to win it in game one, and Brooklyn led for over 39 minutes in game two before falling apart at the end. So I admit I took Brooklyn minus the points for game three. Okay, on that one, thinking of the situation,
Yeah.
but and looking at the game itself, the length of Boston is just throwing off, the Brooklyn completely. Their smaller players just don't have anywhere to move. Kyrie Irving, we saw these highlights, him busted ankles and stuff like that. Well, you know what? The only person that's having a hard time is Kyrie Irving now in this series.
Exactly.
And I look at, it's a good thing Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, okay, ended up playing with teammates that were better than them, because that's the only way they're going to get a championship ring. I can tell you that. And now Durant was a very important key for Golden State. That the 1 year that they went to the finals with him, he was an important. But as it turns out, he's not the most important part of that. And so I think his team was vastly overrated, as it turns out. And also to Steve Nash, by the way, a negative shout out to him. When you're in your do or die game, and the player that gives the most effort, okay, comes off the bench, having not played in 2 games, and he gives his all, he's exhausted, but yet he's the only guy that's hustling more than anybody on the floor for the Nets. And I'm talking about Blake Griffin. I mean, that is a condemnation about that team and about Steve Nash at the same time.
Yeah. And you know what? You got to give him credit. He didn't play in the first 3 games of that series, I believe, Doug. Correct me if
Two.
I'm wrong.
Yep.
Yeah, whatever. He's had very minimal playing
Right.
time of late, not only the playoffs, but down the stretch of the regular season. And he really gave him a boost off the bench, and he was huffing and puffing. You could tell he's not in game shape for obvious reasons. And when I say that, it's not a negative toward him.
No.
Anybody cast into that position who's at that age in the NBA is probably going to suffer from the same consequences. But give him credit. He did what he had to do, and diving all over the floor, boxing out on defense, and just a little more of that from the Brooklyn side. And they might be up in this series. But having said that, I agree. I mean, Boston, to use your terminology, just seems well connected. We keep hearing how great the Celtics defense is, and it has been, right, through the course of the year. And now they got Robert Williams back, who's the anchor of that defense. And Doug brought that up a couple weeks back when he went out with that injury, that that was going to be a hindrance to Boston's overall defense. However, you got to be frustrated as a Brooklyn Nets fans because you're shooting 51.3% from the field and over 40% from the 3-point line in the series, and you're down 3-0. Now, if you're facing the Celtics with this defensive reputation that they've earned, and you're shooting that well through 3 games, I'd bet anything you're not going to be down 3-0.
Right.
But hindsight's always 20/20, and like Doug says, analytics and statistics sometimes get thrown out the windows. It's not about the X's and O's, but the Joes and the Joes, or whatever that saying is. So that certainly applies here, Doug.
Yeah. Well, and the other one, I'm sorry,
Sure.
one final thought is, and this has been the key to the series, and certainly was the most important thing of Game 3: turnovers.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, they are forcing Durant is averaging, I think, 6 turnovers a game, I believe is what it is. I mean, so with that, and the turnovers are what they refer to as live ball turnovers, so that the opposing team, for the most part, is getting him and being able to transition immediately, which is points in this case. And there's your greatest difference in the series, is just that area right there.
Yeah.
And that negates everything else that's gone on.
Yeah, I mean, Boston's not shooting bad, but 47%. But Brooklyn's shooting 51. And like Doug said, turnovers is one of the most overlooked aspects of handicapping the NBA, because more times than not, as Doug just alluded to astutely, teams turn those turnovers into fast break points or outnumbered situations. And you see when Durant gets the ball, I mean, they're forcing the ball out of his hands, or they're forcing him to force his own action. And as a result, you're seeing the turnovers are getting. And as a result, you're seeing guys like Bruce Brown have a field day. But like Mark Jackson said, you know what? If I'm coaching Boston, I could live with Bruce Brown having 20 plus games and saying, okay, if he's going to continue to play that good and beat me, I'll tip my hat to him. I'd rather have that than Kyrie Irving and Durant going off and crushing you. So some interesting topics to discuss in the NBA, but this is a Major League Baseball show, and we're going to have a couple free picks for you. But before we get to those free picks, one just final reminder, folks. I know you've been waiting patiently. I hope you appreciate our conversation and you take something away from that in your handicapping arsenal. But if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, it's 100% free to do so. There are no strings attached. I appreciate, and we appreciate, all the subscribers. We're close to 7,500 subscribers now. We're just 3 years old, and boy, oh boy, if you have subscribed and you find it a nuisance to keep going back and forth to our channel to find out when the newest videos come up, that's because you have not hit the notification bell. So go into your YouTube settings, hit that notification bell, and you'll be alerted immediately upon any of our free pick videos going up on this channel, including this one right now. And for those of you who are going to subscribe, because it's absolutely free, we were on that tear for 9 weeks where we were just knocking it out of the park in the mid 60%. Look, it was a matter of time before we hit a dry spell, and last week was one of them, particularly me. I think I went 1-4 last week with my free picks on this channel. But overall, by watching these videos, again, you're going to learn something new every day. And also, we're putting you in the best position to win, even though these are just free picks. Just because they're free picks doesn't mean either one of us or anyone on this channel doesn't want to win, because I could tell you, I got some pretty competitive guys. One is sitting right next to me here on the screen. So, Doug, having said that, take it away, my friend.
Yes, well, I was glad to have a winner for you last week, Ross, with Seattle on Friday.
Yeah.
So let's see if I can double up on that one. So I'm going to talk about game 2 of a 4-game series between Colorado and Philadelphia. Now, all things considered, Ross, if the Rockies record was 6-10, like the Phillies, and the Phillies were 10-5, like the Rockies, in the last week of April, nobody would probably bat an eye. Okay, from that standpoint, but this is where we are. Okay, Rockies playing better. Philly's offense hasn't gotten the job done. You know that, Ross. Four runs per game. Okay, they're giving up 4.7 runs per game. Bullpen's not very good. Colorado is also, though, allowing 4.7 runs per game. That's not a surprise, especially playing at Coors Field. But their offense has, let's just say, complemented it by scoring an equal amount of runs. And you know what? Part of we're still early in the season. Part of that, they lost 13-0 last Saturday when Miguel Cabrera had his 3,000th hit. So congratulations to him on that one. So that kind of altered whatever, the situation for them. Now, the pitching matchup for game 2 on Tuesday is a repeat of 6 days ago when they were at a mile high, and it's going to be German Marquez against Zach Eflin again. Now, both hurlers gave up 4 runs in about 6 innings of work last week. Neither was a factor in the decision as the Phillies won that game 9-6. Now, Marquez, though, he's 3-1 with a 3.21 ERA versus Philadelphia. Eflin, on the other hand, is 1-3 against the Rocks. His ERA is over 7, and I'm going to say it again. We're going to talk whip because we're talking with Ross here.
Yeah,
we're going to bring it. It's 1.8. And Ross, that should make your head almost come off to see a pitcher with a whip like that, because that's unbelievably horrible. Now, the Rockies come into this one, as we do this video, they're a road underdog of plus 140 on this one. But the Rockies, you know what? They're 20-9 against a National League team batting 255 or worse. And even more impressively, with Marquez on the mound, they are 16-9 as an underdog of plus 100 or higher. Ross, I'm going to take a rare underdog on this show in baseball and say Colorado wins at plus 140 over Philadelphia.
So if you're new to betting baseball, the plus 140, folks, that means for every 100 you put up, you get back 140. It's a handsome return on investment. And there's a lot of guys out there to give out a lot of underdogs, and they're good at it. And, you could actually go 50% or less in Major League Baseball if you have that keen way of picking underdog winners. Now, in our business, the problem is when we give out an underdog like Doug just did, people still look at win-loss percentages and get caught up with that. You can't when it's money line betting, folks. You have to really look at the ROI, return on investment, when it comes to money line betting. So, I like German Marquez. I think he's a very underrated pitcher. And look, I'd love to see this guy if he was able to hook on with another franchise. I'm not suggesting that's what I'd like to see in general. I'm just saying I would like to see what if he was with another franchise and didn't have to pitch half or more of his starts annually at Coors Field, because he's a good pitcher. And Philadelphia, I'm miffed at the fact that they're not hitting, okay, because there's more talent in that lineup than what it equates to offensively, and their bullpen It's been a struggle for a few years now, right, Doug? I mean,
Yep.
they're over 5 this year. And again, Doug brings up Eflin's whip 180. That's pretty high, folks. I like to say that a decent whip is 140 or less. Anything over that, you're really struggling. And if your ERA is lower sometimes, like in the threes or the high twos, and your whip is around 145, 150, that just tells me that you're wiggling out of a lot of jams. Anyway, let me get to my game. The Kansas City Royals at the Chicago White Sox, 7:10 p.m. Eastern time start on Tuesday, the 26th. I'm going to take a look at the total in this game, which is 8.5. Let's start with the weather anytime we play a game in Chicago, right, Doug? Who's a former, just outside of Chicago. He grew up, so he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Wrigley Field, usually you don't get a total on a game at Wrigley until the day of the game. Not so much at Progressive Field in Chicago. However, I'm looking at the weather forecast during the first 2 hours of this game. And because there's no precipitation, I could very much say the first 2 hours of this game, the forecast is 11 to 20 mile an hour winds blowing out to left center. So it's going to be hitter's paradise in that regard. And the two pitchers going today, a pair of southpaws, or tomorrow, I should say, or today, depending on when you view, Daniel Lynch from the Kansas City Royals and Dallas Keuchel for the Chicago White Sox are two struggling pitchers. Now, Lynch did have one good start this year, Doug, but the other one was terrible. And he made 3 starts against the White Sox last season. And his ERA in those 3 starts, 16.19. Okay, so that's not good. And how about a whip of 264? 11 starts last year at night and 4 during the day. He was great during the day last year, but at night, a 6.75 ERA and a 1.74 whip. Folks, that day-night split, when you're looking at starting pitchers, do not ignore that, especially when you're seeing disparity in numbers like I just alluded to. I mean, he made 4 starts during the day last year and had under a 3 ERA, but his 11 starts at night, 6.75. So that's a big disparity. Now, Chicago, the White Sox, I should say, have had a lot of success against left-handed pitchers, starting pitchers, I should say, over the last 2 years. Last year tailed off a little bit, but they were on this unbelievable run for a long time against left-handed starting pitchers. And this year is no different. 3 games against left-handed starters this year, they've averaged 6.7 runs per game and have a monster 862 OPS. And if you want to know what OPS is, it's on base percentage plus slugging percentage, and that gives you that number. And anything 800 or above is damn good. And they're at 862. Dallas Keuchel, 3 starts against KC last year, 6.60 ERA, 1.60 whip. Not very good. Keuchel, 2 starts this year. Terrible. Absolutely horrible, Doug. 16.50 ERA and a 2.83 whip. Wow. So again, if you look at Keuchel's history, he was a former Cy Young winner at one point, but his career, I've seen it steadily decline as the years have gone on, and he's a very vulnerable pitcher at this stage of his career. And also the Kansas City Royals, 4 road games this year, 3 of them have gone over, and there was a combined average of 11.2 runs scored per game. A lot of that average, of course, went up in those 2 games they were crushed, I think, against Cleveland. But in any event, I like this game to go over the total of 8.5. 2 pitchers that are susceptible to giving up the long ball, 2 pitchers. And Keuchel, by the way, this is nothing new as bad starts this year, because during spring training, he made 2 starts. It had over an 11 ERA and gave up 19 hits while walking 5 in 11 innings pitched. So it's sort of carried over into the regular season. I'm going to go KC and the White Sox over 8.5. And Doug, tell the folks who you like again on Tuesday the 26th, and also what you may have coming up and how you've been doing of late.
Ross, the in Major League Baseball, I got the Colorado Rockies plus 140 at this time to take down the Philadelphia. I was going to say, I almost said Eagles, take down the Philadelphia Phillies. And just
And the Eagles hit harder.
right, they actually do, as they are right now, anyways.
Yeah.
Just the Ross, I don't want anybody to come after you, and just want to so you know, it's Keuchel, okay? Because
Keuchel. Okay.
I just want to just
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
not that you
Because
didn't know,
it's
I believe
happened before.
I've mispronounced plenty of names on this show, okay, and many others as well. And I do have a quick Dallas Keuchel story for you. I was at one of those spring training games in which he was horrible, and I had never seen this before, and I didn't even know you could do it. Okay. Keuchel, I think he walked 3 or 4 guys. He gave up 2 tremendously long home runs. And so La Russa comes out, takes him out, okay, after bottom of the third or whatever, top of the third. And then the very next inning, I'm sitting there and he's on the mound again.
Wow.
And it's like, I didn't know you could do that even in spring training.
No,
So
no.
I never actually did look it up. So obviously it has to be by agreement of the opposing manager or opposing team. But that blew me away because I'm sure they just wanted to have him get his number of pitches in.
Yeah.
Just get the work in. Forget the results.
You know what, Doug? We grew up in the same era, basically.
Right.
In New York State, anyway, when I played varsity baseball for a couple seasons, there was what we call the re-entry rule.
Right.
You know, I don't know if they had that in the state of Illinois when you played, but in any event, that's news to me because I was under the impression, even though it's spring training, they still went by the Major League Baseball rule book, but
Right.
apparently not. So
yeah, so that was interesting. So anyway, so that was kind of something different out to just to see for sure on that one. In terms of what's going on, didn't have the weekend I wanted. The NBA still long term. Okay, new week, excited for a new week. 46-22, up almost $7,000 in terms of profit. Good stuff there. Ross has been talking me up on my NHL picks. Well, I'm starting to get a record that he can be proud of himself to back it up, to say it.
right.
5-1 recent
Nice.
play picks. We got next. I think it's next Monday. Yeah, I think it's next Monday, the start of the NHL playoffs. So looking forward to that, and got some interest. I changed my handicapping completely for the playoffs. I mean, I don't want to say 180, but certainly about 160 in terms of how I handicap. So it's completely different. I've had great success with that over the years. So looking forward to that. And then Ross mentioned the USFL. I threw in golf. So there's been a number of things that are going well, and I'm excited for another great week of sports betting, and especially to wrap up April. So looking forward to it, Ross. How about yourself? What have you, I know, like you mentioned NBA, so let everybody know about that and everything else that you have going on.
Well, thank you, Doug. And again, you can find Doug at docsports.com, folks. Great handicappers there, including Doug, and I'm a little biased. So you should follow Doug and Scott Spreitzer because they're on our show. Anyway, yes, since April 1st, Doug, 19-9 in the NBA. So that's good for 68%. And my NBA 10-star top plays, which are equivalent to a lot of players' best bets. And guys at Docs, that would be like a 6 or 7
unit play. Yep.
Yeah. So with those, I've gone 9-2 with my last 11. So things have gone very, very well. I do have, if indeed you catch this video before the games go off tonight and on Tuesday or on Monday, excuse me, I do have a 10-star money line top play going tonight in the Celtics and the Nets game. And folks, this is all documented. It's on every site I'm on. This year, 14-0 with my NBA money line picks. I picked my spots with no pun intended, and perfect 14-0, and not one of those exceeded the threshold of -135. So keep that in mind. And since the start of last season, 21-1 with those picks combined. So just, as Doug would say, I can't explain it. But when I isolate one of those games for an NBA money line pick, like I did for tonight's game, again, game 4 of the Celtics in Nets series. And again, we're taping on Monday, so keep that in mind, folks. I've been doing very well with those. Major League Baseball, I've been very limited in what I've done with Major League Baseball to start the season. I very modest 11-10 record with a slight profit. But I can assure you, as the time goes on, that I will be dabbling more and more into that. And unequivocally has been my best sport for handicapping throughout my career. And my Major League Baseball 10-star top place since the start of last year is 45-23. That's good for 66%. And that includes 3-0 this year. So I only gave out 3 of those this year. And let's see, 68. I only gave out 63 of them last year. So you can see how choosy I am when I pick my spots with those. So keep an eye on those, folks. I've been doing great in the NBA, especially since the postseason began. In Major League Baseball 10-star top plays, NBA money line plays, NBA 10-star top plays, all cranking. And you heard Doug's record in the NBA. And that's just not since April 1st. That goes back a long way. So again, Doug Upstone at DocSports.com, Ross Benjamin, RVWins.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already done so. If you have, thank you very much, folks. We appreciate it. And until the next time, for Doug Upstone and Ross Benjamin, we'd like to wish each and every one of you all the very best. Good luck and God bless, folks.